Do you support Trump?
I do.
Why so?
So I will start by saying I'm not like a huge MAGA person. I'm not like everything Donald Trump does is amazing. I do think that he's a lot of the times, as far as personality wise, negative in a lot of ways. Like what you were saying about like the sexist comments, that's for sure like that's not justifiable, right? But I am a Republican and I do support a lot of the policies that he agrees upon. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit more was specifically like the No Kings protests yesterday, kind of about what the motivation to do. Like, I understand the protest, I understand why people are using their First Amendment. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I just want to talk more specifically about the anger towards the 250th anniversary celebration of the Army. Like,
Uh,
what's your opinion on
the
that?
angry is towards Donald Trump.
Okay, all right. So do you think, like, in your opinion, and you're obviously valid to that, you think that it's like him throwing himself his own birthday party? Is that what you think?
Yeah, people associate it with like something that he's doing. So it's not like they have a disagreement with the military doing it. I actually think significantly more people would be involved in it if it wasn't the case that the that Trump was associated with it, because it's everything Trump is doing on top of this. Because it gives people like the idea of Donald Trump's a incredibly authoritarian leader is doing all these unjustly authoritarian things, and then he's also doing this like military parade thing that kind of seems like what people were saying, like seems like what North Korea does in terms of their
Sure, sure.
military parades.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I could definitely see the comparisons to the North Korean parades, but I just don't think that the motivation for obviously the motivation for our parades to theirs is just completely different. Where Kim Jong Un is strictly like this is our powerful, we've got nukes, don't mess with us, which is an understandable. This is a celebration for like the men and women who served over the last 250 years, gave their lives. I like as far as I'm concerned, the protests is it's 100% makes sense for these people to protest. There are a lot of opinions that they have that they are completely allowed to voice. What I think is by protesting on that specific date because it was Donald Trump's birthday was a little bit disrespectful to a lot of the Army veterans who are trying to celebrate 250 years of their service, their father's service, people, their best friends who died in other countries trying to protect these people's right to have that protest. You know what I mean? And while we can obviously go back and forth on our opinions about the due process, the immigration, the deportation, but that's not what I'm here to argue about. I'm here to say I thought that having the protest specifically on that date as a way to get at Donald Trump was a little bit of a way to
Yeah.
take away
How
from
do you feel about all the
the
veterans that supported the No King's Day protests?
Sure, yeah, no, I understand. There's a lot of them, but I also think that there's a
A
lot
hell
more
of a lot of
veterans.
veterans do. I'll give you someone specifically that I know. Do you know who Jolly Good Ginger is?
He's a TikToker, right? I think I've seen him. I'm not sure if that's correct, but I've probably
You
seen his content.
you've probably most likely you've seen him, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I couldn't say I know who
he
he
is a
is.
veteran. He literally went to an area, right, where people were having a rally like this and was talking to people. And there's a clip of him talking to someone where he is talking about how he again supports the No King's Day protests, obviously, right? And it is the case that he disagrees with this person who showed up specifically at the Army birthday parade. Right, and was in support of Donald Trump, and was saying that January 6th was an inside job, and calling Donald Trump a patriot, and saying they were in support of
Okay.
January 6th rioters, like and
No,
the
no, no, no. Don't get me wrong. There's 100% a lot of like dumb MAGA fools who are January 6th was a patriotic day. Like that is not what I'm saying. And I do also understand that there are a lot of veterans who supported the protests. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about specifically choosing to use this date. Like why do you think one, do you think that it was somewhat disrespectful and not like do you think there was a better date? Do you think that
hold
in a
on, I
way
so
sorry.
oh yeah, do I think that there's a better way that we could have done this? No,
No.
because I think that Donald Trump not having people at his military parade was really
Mhm.
important. And I think that
Well,
protesting him was really important. And I think that most veterans will agree with that, especially because what Donald Trump does is extraordinarily antithetical to, what being a veteran should stand for, right? That you're trying to protect this country, you're trying to fight for the rule of law, our democratic values, our court system, our freedoms.
mhm.
Donald Trump seriously, when I mean seriously, violates every single one of those things.
And I personally disagree with that. I don't think that Donald Trump. What was that word that you used right before? Because you said it, and I was just like, I honestly don't know what that word
The
means.
rule of law?
Right before. No, no, I know what that is. I'm saying it was a specific word right before you used. I can't remember. I'm sorry, but um, what I'm trying to say is, I
Antithetical?
don't believe.
Oh, like
Yes,
eh,
yes.
in total opposition to.
In total opposition to what being a veteran is. Is that what you're trying to
Yeah,
say?
like they can't be true simultaneously.
I truly disagree with is the idea that he's completely against what being a veteran is. I think that Donald Trump is a very solid patriot. I think that aligns with being a veteran. I think that he wants national security. I think that's very true. I think that he is um, trying to bring back industry to America, trying to get more American. What's the word? Sorry, I'm trying to think. Industry, everything. What I'm saying is to say that Donald Trump is the opposite of a whole heart patriot veteran. I don't think that's warranted.
Draft dodger undermines our democratic values, our rule of law, tried to steal the election, sent falsely to electoral college to cast Trump votes when he didn't win to try to steal the election, called for the termination of the Constitution. He hates everything America's standing on.
I don't think he hates it. What I do agree with you on is he's for sure a egotistical. He could be very bigoted in a lot of ways. I do think that you are correct in the fact that like, wow, this guy says some really dumb shit some of the times. But in reality, America is set up in a system to where even if he said dumb and like for instance, people are like, oh, Donald Trump's going to run for a third term, blah blah blah. That's just never going to happen, right? Even if Donald Trump seriously wanted to, because of the system that's set up, none of these like huge things that people are worried about they just can't happen.
Wait, restate that one more time.
So, for instance, like for the people who say that Donald Trump is going to run for a third term, right? The way that our system is set up, through checks and balances, it is just not possible for him to do so. Even if, which I'm not saying he does,
How
even
about
if
how
he
about
wanted
this?
to.
How about this? Would you have
Sure.
told me prior to the election that it's not possible for Donald Trump to literally remove people out of the country and kidnap them without due process because it's not constitutionally allowed? Would you say that to me?
Okay. So about the due process, because this is something that I've gone back and forth a lot about, and I'm trying to understand more. Because truthfully, I won't say I understand everything. I'm not completely educated. I'm not college educated in this, but from my understanding, the Constitution gives that right to born citizens or naturalized citizens to America. Correct?
No, the Constitution grants that right to anyone who's in the country, meaning tourists, if
It,
they commit a crime in the country, they get due process.
specifically, like where does it say it? Like I'm because I
The
was
Fifth and
looking at
14th
it.
Amendment.
Okay. What I saw when I was looking is to naturalized or born citizens.
I don't know. It says it. I think you're reading something else.
Could you pull it up? Because honestly, like I would like to hear the words.
Hmm.
I don't have a computer in front of me. I know you do.
I got you.
Of course. And like I said, this isn't me trying to rage bait. This is me trying to educate myself and understand. You could also see the point of view where the other people are coming from. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Totally fine. Totally fine. No state
Sure.
shall make or enforce any law which shall not abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall
Mhm.
any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
So that's where it becomes. what is the human rights versus the rights for the American citizen, right? So obviously we can all agree on human rights are important for everyone. Obviously,
Wait,
these,
it says nor shall any state deprive any person, explicitly any person.
but it also for like,
Like
so
they
this is
said
where
citizens prior. Why didn't they say citizen?
that is a fair point. That's where I'm trying to educate myself and as well. Like I said, I've bounced back and forth with the due process, right? So, but you could see where you're looking at the Constitution. It's like, okay, this also says, you know, this is a right reserved for American
Here,
citizens. Could you see
let me
that?
let me add this other part as well. Here,
Okay.
I'll read this because I think I didn't even read this part, and this is actually necessary. So I'll read it again.
Okay.
No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So explicitly, it's very specific in saying people and not just citizens. I think that's probably like right there should convince you genuinely. And that's just referencing just that without even referencing the Fifth Amendment.
Right. Sure. I do understand that. That is for sure written in in there that is specific. The people, all people. So I think that it's fair that I appreciate that search of research. I want to do more on it. Like for instance, like I will say, what I think is really hard is in the situation where people are going through the process, and I think that we have yet to make a solution, which we could for this kind of in between realm. So a little, for me personally, my mom is a Russian immigrant. She went through the whole legal process to become here, right? Currently, the legal process definitely has some in between zones, right? Would you agree with that? Where it's like, even if you are going through the process, like I feel like we can both agree, there's some spots where it becomes iffy, where ICE is definitely able to overstep.
There are points where ICE over. Yes.
Yes, yes, right. I'm not like this is me on your side with this for sure, right? My mom, if she was in this current state of America, when she was going through the process, there is potential for where she could be in danger of being, you say the word kidnapped. I don't guess, I disagree with that terminology, but she could have been
It's
deported.
without due process.
Right,
So then
right.
it obviously would be.
So what I'm saying, like I said, I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm not a MAGA maniac. I do think that there is overstepping. I do think that in some cases, I do think that due process, well, let me rephrase. In this in between realm, there's a lot of these people who are in the in between realm of US citizenship or not US citizenship. I think that it is very important to protect due process for those people. For the people who are, coming here illegally, have no interest in becoming US citizens through a legal process, do you think that they deserve due process? Do you think they have the right for due
Yes, the
process?
constitutionally they do. We just went over this.
Okay. Sure, but I feel like that it is not a stretch to say that these people are here illegally, have no plan to be there illegally. Why should they not be deported?
Yeah, they shouldn't be deported because they haven't committed a violent crime or bad crime. And the whole point of the immigration process in the very first place is to only restrict people in circumstances in which it is the case that they'd be a threat to the country. They're not a threat to the country if they haven't committed a violent crime or bad crime.